In our last session with Agent Thornton, we had a pretty action packed session, I guess we could say. Ending with the discovery of a tragic death. But before we carry on from that scene, let's hear it from Agent Thornton's perspective. What happened in those few hours?
Okay, so we open on the steps of my house where I had returned home after visiting my former college professor from Harvard. Uh, John Malone was there. This is where we have the conversation about there is going to be a sign or a signal coming up, a type of massacre, as he puts it, is one piece of information that he gives me. The other one is he leaves a card with some contact information, a phone number, in case I need to get a hold of someone. I'm assuming, Alex is assuming, that this is to get a hold of Xavier. From there, after a little bit of paranoia and cleanup, uh, I head to the Treasury office where, talking with Bill, we do the lowdown and write up on my encounter with Xavier and his cohorts in the basement of the warehouse. And as I depart, I manage to secure a date with a hookup from Bill.
Yes.
For this week's Friday, and I need to keep 2 Fridays separate. This week's Friday is supposed to be the date. I leave the Treasury office still reaching for further information after having talked with Bill. And since the card has been something that's been haunting me, I make the decision to look up a fortune teller.
Right.
From there, the Treasury office, I go to Madame Bouvet's. I don't remember if I wrote that down right.
Ove. Yeah.
Bouvet, a nice home, older woman with starlet-like looks. The room I am situated in while there and having the conversation has books which lean more towards scientific study mixed with books from Crowley and Egyptology.
Yeah, she's trendy.
Although while I'm there and attempting to get a advice or possibly information about the tarot card, when I show it to her and she discovers that the card she is looking for is not in her deck, but seemingly is in my hand, she becomes a bit distraught, at which point we end our conversation. I apologize for the interruption of the day. I pay her man, her butler, and
Yeah.
I leave. I still, as I depart from her parlor, have the feeling that someone is watching me and they are out to get me, that they know what I'm doing. And I'm still worried that every time I reach out to get information outside of the Treasury Department, that I could possibly be endangering another person if I try to get anything from them. Part of the conversation I had with Bill dealt with headlines of a massacre. From there, at the fortune teller's parlor, I leave to go to the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
Where it's an office type setup off of a main street, but it's kind of a narrow lane. It's very crowded. There are a lot of police here. I have to park a little far away. I run into Lieutenant Gabriel Washburn and, I didn't write his name down, the desk officer from the precinct who I had
He was a
spoken with
York.
before. But yeah, York. I convinced them that I am here as part of Treasury investigation, looking into Dr. Edward Caldwell and his connection with his previous record for abduction.
Dr. Edward
Call. And his connection with the O'Shaughnessy's. They tell me that it's a soup kitchen inside. I'm on my way up to see the scene of the crime. Still confident about my ability to deal with an investigation like this, even though I am part of the Treasury Department. We don't really have a tendency to deal with violent crimes. We get in, it's a bloodbath. There's blood everywhere. Unusually, there are bullet holes in the ceiling as if someone was shooting upward from a ground position. There are bullet holes in the wall. While trying to dig through Call's files, I'm not able to retain my composure and react sickly to the environment I'm in, at which point I'm becoming even more stressed in the environment. Washburn is with me. He appears to be grounded. He consoles me about my situation. I get the feeling that he doesn't really understand the extent or how some of this might all be connected with potentially what kicked off my investigation, the books, and part of the reason why I'm here, which I haven't really discussed specifically about the books with a lot of people. I arranged to get a truck to have the files brought back to our office, let Bill know. He, if my notes are correct, lets me know that there was a call from my dad's office.
Yeah.
So from here, I will depart the scene of the crime, kind of clean myself up, as I know I might be trailing a little blood, and then go to check on the books, the accountant books that I had dropped off there. While there, I discover that there is to be an announcement about a major investor who will be using my family's company.
Yeah.
As it turns out, this person is Xavier. When I discover this, I let my dad's front desk secretary know that I need to make an appointment with him as soon as he's got time available. That turns out to be the appointment for the Friday of the following week.
Right.
While I'm there, she also mentions that they haven't heard from Steve. There's been no contact made. Even now, at this point, we're a few days after I had let Steve know, hey, maybe my family can help you out. We can provide some stability. So being concerned about Steve, everything I've seen today and moving forward, I choose to go and check in on Steve where he lives. When I arrive there, he is not in the best part of, he lives not in the best part of town. He has kind of a rooming house out behind a family's house. Even though I'm not a sneaky individual, I do kind of try and arrive later in the evening. I try to remain in cover as best I can, looking in through the window, can't really see anything. I do find that the door is locked. There are lights on. There are no sounds. Concern rising. I reach into my Gladstone bag, bring out my tire iron, and just pry open Steve's door, where I see him lying face down, kind of in the main room, pointing towards the back. his arm kind of outstretched a little bit. I investigate. He's definitely dead. He's been dead for a little while. When I roll him over, or before I roll him over, I kind of investigate the house really quickly, then roll him over, where I discover that it appears as though his heart has been ripped out of his chest.
Yeah.
And when he flops to his back, his hand, the outstretched hand, overturning, lets go of a small, ovalish shaped carven figure or figurine.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know what type of stone it is or anything like that. That's kind of where, and that is when I decided I need to get to a phone right now. I need to call Bill. I suspect that since the body was cold, that nobody's going to return. They're just going to leave him here to be found at a much later date. So I want to get a hold of Bill, thinking about where I'm at. Would Washburn and York, would this be within their jurisdiction if we contact them as police?
Right. Definitely not.
Definitely
within yours. Yeah.
Well, but I want to know, like, is it within their precinct? Like they have, you know what I mean? I don't want to step outside another police department's jurisdiction within the city. I know police generally, have jurisdiction over an entire city, but if there's a district office closer to me, I don't want to,
Bill would definitely be able to fill you in on that score.
Okay. If we can, or if he can, I want him to try and get a hold of Washburn and York. Because so far, with my interaction with the police, these are the only two officers I feel comfortable directly exposing any information to.
As kids, our mothers told us that if we did what we were told, stayed out of trouble, and looked to good men and women as role models to better ourselves, we could achieve the American dream. It's hard not to wonder now as the drought eats the heart out of the country and the dust delivers black blizzards and poor men beg for food while rich men fall from the sky. Did they know they were lying? Broken families, broken dreams, broken promises, moments of charity, holding off starvation for another day so that suffering can carve deeper marks in the rag-clad children of destitute parents cowering in confusion in the shadows of well-heeled shot callers for the gangsters and politicians, with the police taking money from both to keep the peace. Keep your nose clean. Keep it to the grindstone. Keep it out of others' business. The words of our mothers echo down the streets lined with ragged folk with tin cups praying for soup. Can anyone turn this free fall into flight? Is there an answer out there that brings sense to madness? Or do we keep swimming our way toward Asculum?
This neighborhood is definitely not an easy place to find a phone. So restaurants, pharmacists, newsstands, not stands, but news outlets, right? Booksellers, the like. You may be able to find phones.
If need be, I flash my treasury badge to to gain access to the phone as quickly as possible.
Right. So 2 blocks down, there's a cigar shop, newsstand out front, and a variety of things inside, books and magazines and
humidors,
hobby materials like for fly fishing and that kind of stuff. And a little sign, phone available.
Yep. Go in, look for the proprietor. I've already got my hand on my badge and pulling it out of my inner pocket.
Okay. Well, he's at the counter, wrapping meat in brown paper. And
sorry to interrupt your evening, sir. My name is Alexander Thornton. I'm a treasury agent, and I need to use your phone immediately.
Payphone's at the back.
Make my way back there.
Okay. There are, wooden booths with glass doors. There's 3 of them. And a couple of clicks, and the operator comes online.
Connect me with Treasury Department. Number of the desk would be 8789.
So, within a few minutes, you get routed through the switchboard. A lot of waiting, and then a click and a crackle on the line. And then the operator comes back and says, "1 moment, sir," and then I'll connect you. And then there's more crackles, and then you hear Bill exclaiming, "I was on my way out of the office."
Well, sorry to interrupt your night off, Bill, but I got a situation. We need to get the police involved in a murder.
Another murder?
Yeah, the gentleman in question who's been killed is a friend of mine who I was going down to check on down here in the Docks district, or down here in this district. And when I got here, his lights were on, door locked, no sound from inside. I haven't heard from him in a couple of days, and since he was out of a job, I knew he would be checking in on this lead for him with my family's firm. And I'm going to tell you, Bill. Yeah, I got to tell you, Bill. I just went in the house, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. But when I got the door open, he's face down in his front room, and he's dead.
All right. Well, I'll go back to the house, make sure no one goes in or out, and then we'll send some officers around. Do you need any backup from here?
If we get an officer, somebody who can come down here to help provide some support, that would be great. But I'll head back to that house. I'll give him the address, tell him where it's at, make sure you come around back. And I'll just be waiting. But if you can, if we're going to get the police involved, I really want to try and make sure it's Washburn or York.
Washburn's the lead on the O'Shaughnessy hit.
Yeah. And these 2 incidences could possibly be related.
Well, he's going to be pretty tired, Alex. He might not need. Anyway, I'll check.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it very much. You're the best boss in the world.
I believe so.
I'll head back to the house. Thank the gentleman on my way out of the front door. Actually, I'll stop off, grab some, no, I can't. I grabbed some gum real quick because I'm getting a little nervous. Need to try and break off some stress, and then head back to the house.
He has a sale on blackjack.
All right. Take a couple of packs. And when I put the badge back into my inner coat pocket, I checked to make sure the tarot card is still there.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Hand
Still
goes from the inner pocket.
largely blank.
Hand goes from the inner pocket to shoulder holster, make sure the button's off, and head back to the Steve's house.
All right. Well, your car is receiving the loving attention of two young boys. They are not dressed warmly enough for the temperature, although honestly, it might not be as cold today as it was yesterday. But you know, you got smudge. One kid's got smudged dirt under his eye, and they both look terrified of combs. But they're polishing the front headlights. You know, one's got a rag, the other one's using the arm of his coat, and they're talking about this car like they know everything about it.
Where are we at here? Oh, where are you at? Okay. So as I'm my Cleveland's coat, long coat, kind of middle button still done, but kind of flapping in the breeze as I'm striding up, carrying my Gladstone. Hearing them talk about the car, I'll ask him, I'll say, when was the last time you ever saw Willie's Night 6?
It's the first time. Is this yours?
It certainly is.
Can you take us for a drive?
Maybe in a minute, but I got business. Can you keep an eye on the car for me while I take care of things?
Sure. And then the younger one shoots an elbow into the older one, who gives him a dirty look in return. And the kid's going like, "Sure we can, mister. What's it worth to you?"
I pull out a box of blackjack.
Gum?
I said, don't look
so
the
little one is like, gum.
I give the box of blackjack to the younger one.
I'll watch this until the cows come home.
And I'll pull out, I'll set my Gladstone down kind of between my feet and reach in my back pocket, pull out my wallet, kind of look at them. You kids from around here?
Yes, sir.
I pull out two $1 bills, give one to each of them.
Just staring at this. Is this real?
Oh, it's real. You kids live on this block?
Yes, sir.
You see that house over there? And I point to the house where Steve's rooming house is behind it.
Oh, yeah. We know that house.
What's that mean?
I broke her front window with my ball. She won't give it back. And I had to pay for the window.
Well, I mean, accidents happens, but it's good you took responsibility for what you did. So one of the things that they may notice is that when my wallet flips open, that is where my badge is. So I'm keeping an eye on them to see what their reaction, not just to the dollar is, but what their reaction to the badge is.
That's when the yes sirs started.
Okay. The past couple of days, you guys seen anything? Anything strange going on in this neighborhood around that house?
They think they're being coy, but they're obviously shooting each other looks, trying to decide if they should tell or not. They're under a lot of pressure in this decision, right? Fidgeting and
I'm watching them, seeing the discomfort. I'm trying to figure out whether or not it's their discomfort is coming from the fact that they may know something they don't want to tell me, and that I am an officer. They see my badge, or that I am just an adult and they don't want to tell me, or they really just don't know. Kind of like I'm trying to discern from their body language, the fact that I've just kind of given them, you know, the dollar. And if they're still being reluctant, do they come forthwith, or do they still keep fidgeting while I'm trying to figure out what their mental state is?
Right. The little one clearly wants to be able to talk to the older one, and I guess they're brothers. They don't really look like brothers, but they certainly behave like brothers. Right. Really wants to be able to talk to him, like to even tugging on his sleeve, kind of thing. And the other one is more in his own head, weighing something. Right. But let's give me a roll on psychology, please.
That's a 65. Which is just 5 over. I'm not exactly sure what his stance is. I get the feeling he's probably just reluctant because he sees my badge. He's a little intimidated.
Right. G-Man. Now he's painfully aware how long they've been silent. It can be dangerous to talk about stuff that we see.
I look around out in the middle. We're out in the middle of the street. Is this too open for you? Or is it just because you think somebody may have already seen you with me?
I hadn't even thought about that. Now he looks terrified.
I kind of kneel a little bit and get down to his level. And I say, look, if something bad has happened, I need to know, because a friend of mine is in trouble and I'm down here to help him. And I kind of give him a serious look. And at this point, I'm trying to put into my voice the convincing nature of helping out those in need. So if you help me, I mean, you already helped me by polishing my headlights, and you got paid for that, and a pretty good amount too, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I hold out my hand. He keeps saying, sir. And when he starts saying, sir, I hold out my hand. I say, my name is Alex. You don't got to call me, sir. I'm not your dad.
Okay, sir. I mean,
Alex.
Now the snow is definitely melting. You can definitely feel it against, the soles of your shoes and where you're kind of kneeling down close. But you also get the sense that you're breaking through the ice with this kid. He just leans in a little bit and he starts polishing again, and he says, "There's a lot of O'Shaughnessy's in our neighborhood, mister."
I'm pretty aware of that. But did you see any of them near this house? Do they come down to this house?
Yeah, we saw. Little one pipes in. We saw a ghost. He gets hit for his trouble. Right. But like instantly the older kid instantly feels bad for having whacked him. You know what I mean?
I kind of, reach out my hand a little bit, to kind of say, hey, no, none of that. All right.
Little
you
one
saw a ghost?
is emboldened. by your support, or what he takes as your support. He says, "We saw the ghost of the fist." And the older one's really upset. He's like, "Come on."
I'll look at the older one and say, "What's wrong? You didn't see it? Was he alone? Are you calling him a liar?"
"We saw it, but we shouldn't say."
"How long ago did you see it?"
He just totally gives up. Today, this afternoon. But I mean, it must have been somebody else, like one of his sons or something. There's no way. We didn't see a ghost. Yes, we did. It was exactly a ghost.
How do you know it was a ghost? Was it floating in the ground? Did it go through a wall?
No, that would have been amazing. No. No, it was the fist, but he was young.
Really? Look.
Yeah, his hair was red again. So I think it was one of his boys that we just don't know. And then he gets really red. Like he's got a lot of them.
Well, since you were kind enough to share this with me, I'll share something with you.
What?
And I'll slowly reach into my inner coat pocket and put my hand on the tarot card. And I'll pull it out. And I'll show the face of it to him. But still no image of the knight, correct? It's still just a blank card.
Yeah, it just says the knight at the bottom and
And I kind of hold it up, for both of them to see and say, "That's me."
"There's something wrong with your baseball card, mister."
"I know. It's got no picture on it, right? You see that, right? Just the words."
"Yeah, just the words."
I put it back in my inner pocket, thankfully confirming for myself that I'm still not going insane, that the picture is not there and I'm the only one not seeing it. I look at the kid who said he had seen the ghost. "So you're telling me that it was a man, a ghost of a man, maybe. You really do think it was the fist, but younger?"
"I do." The older kid is like, I mean, he knows that's impossible, right? So
yeah,
there has to be some other explanation.
Okay. But that's it, nothing else.
"More than a ghost," the little one says.
Well, no, I kind of nod at the house again. I say, "That's the place I'm really interested in. My friend lives behind there."
"That's where he was. That's where the ghost was, and I was hoping that he was going to kill the old lady." And then he gets whacked again by the older brother. Right, so then the little kid crosses himself and says, "I'm sorry."
How far do you got kids live from here?
Just over there. Further down the street.
Down the street? What are you doing out so late? You guys always out this late?
Sometimes, he throws out the meat that's no good anymore. So we were waiting.
What are your names?
Oh, I'm Tommy. The little one pipes up. "And I'm Alex. That's short for Alexander. Just like you, right?"
I show him my badge. with the identification card inside. And I say, that's a fact, kid. That's a fact. Descended from kings, we are. You look kind of cold. Now, if you ain't too scared, I'm going to have some friends showing up here in a little while. And I'd appreciate someone looking out for my car. You want to sit inside?
Does it have a heater?
Yeah.
Then yes, sir, please. Yes. I mean,
take him over to the car.
Alex, I mean.
As they're fumbling with what to call me, I'm unlocking the back door. Let him get in. And I do kind of, you know, say, now don't take advantage, okay? Get comfortable, stay warm. And if you're afraid of being seen, you can duck out of sight, but don't mess with the car, okay?
What do we do if someone else wants to mess with the car?
If you can get away, but don't risk anything. Make some noise if you have to, because I'm only going to be right over there behind that house. I should be able to hear you.
Can I honk the horn?
Oh, definitely honk the horn if anybody else comes up messing with my car.
Okay. You won't regret it.
I'm sure I won't. And I give them each another $1.
Wait till Mama sees these.
Well, for right now, you're working for me, and I hope I'm paying you well.
Yes, sir. Don't you worry about this car.
Okay, as I am kind of leaning over and, you know, talking to them inside the car, and I'm getting ready to turn around and head back to the house, you know, my hand reaches out as the button on my coat in the middle comes open, letting them see that I am carrying a hot iron with me.
Right.
Go back over to where my Gladstone bag is sitting on the street, pick it up. I go ahead and preemptively undo the clasps on the side so that when any of my backups get here, and hopefully Bill, York, and Washburn show up, I got the files on me, I got the information, I got the notes about the books, so that I get the feeling of being in my professor's office. I'm going to lay out a story that's going to make them think I'm crazy.
Well, the first person to show up is from the Prohibition Bureau. Younger recruit than you. You don't really outrank him in that way, right? But you are a little older than he is, and been with the Bureau a little longer than he has. So there's that social dynamic. But
yeah, I've got a little bit of tenure on him.
Right. And he's being sent here to assist you. So you've got the lead on the investigation from his perspective. Right. Now, his name is Winchester. He's
okay.
Kyle Winchester.
Kyle Winchester.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see they sent the greenie down here. You haven't been up all day, have you?
No, I was up all night last night, making sure that the barrels we know come out of, this warehouse every Monday and every Wednesday would or would not come out. Survey says they did not come out. Small wonder with all the O'Shaughnessy's busy being dead.
Yeah, well, we're in O'Shaughnessy territory now, right?
Yeah, Bill told me 3 times.
All right.
I must have been standing in the doorway for a good 5 minutes saying, okay, Bill. Okay, Bill.
Yeah, you got to creep out on him. You got to, if you have to, just end it abruptly by shutting the door.
I think he's still talking to me now.
Probably is.
So what is, he said that someone you know is dead.
Yeah, a friend of mine. But first, we're going to let the landlord know that we got some people showing up. She's probably not going to be too happy, so be ready for some abrasiveness.
He taps you on the shoulder and says, "Who's in your car?"
Lookouts.
Are they kids?
They were polishing the hood. They did a pretty good job. Look at that shine.
Whatever. So we have an angry landlady.
Well, she's about to be angry, I'm sure. So I'm saying this as we're walking towards her front door.
I'm glad you're taking lead on this.
He's my friend. Ain't nobody else going to take the lead on this. And I knock on the door.
So he stands back, straightens his clothes. He cleans up really nice, you know. So he's backing you up well.
As I see him prep himself, I say, "Where'd you graduate?"
Thanks.
I got to smile and turn back towards the door.
And she says, "Are you finished then?"
No, miss. Sorry, what was your name again?
She points at her mailbox where there's nothing that says her name, but obviously she thinks her name is theirs.
I look at the mailbox.
Smith.
Well, Miss Smith, no, unfortunately,
It's
looks
Mrs.
like you got a tenant. Mrs. Smith, sorry. Looks like I regret to inform you that you may have a tenant who will be coming up short on his rent.
He skipped out that little. She bites off the words you know she was going to say.
And I kind of harden my voice a little bit as she's biting her words off. The reason my friend is going to be skipping out on his rent is he's dead in your rooming house. You're going to have a few more police officers showing up down here. And I kind of look around out in the neighborhood and I say, you might not have good relations right now or maybe after this when the police show up with your neighbors, given the area we're in and our relationship. So
I don't care about those gangsters, but you tell those cops if they go tracking through my rooms, they better not leave any muddy boot prints behind.
There's only going to be a few of us, and trust me, I'm going to be spending a little time back there doing the investigation. To compensate you for your time, how much is Steve's rent?
You're gonna pay his rent?
Well, just because he's dead doesn't mean I think you should take some hardship on you. I kind of look around the neighborhood. Everybody's got some hard times, right? And she can, by looking at me, she can tell that I'm definitely not somebody who falls on hard times.
You don't know the half of it, officer.
I hold out my hand. My name is Alex. Alex Thornton.
The Thorntons?
She kind of sees my face once a little. Yeah, that's my family. But I'm not involved in the accounting. I'm on the law end with the Treasury.
It's a long beat as she tries to digest that. Well, young people, whatever. His rent isn't much. He's behind 2 months. So that would be $15.
I look in my wallet. Here's the 15. Here's the 15 for how much he's behind. And you said he has, how much is he paying per month?
5.
Here's 2 months advance rent for whoever moves in.
I don't need the charity.
This isn't charity, and trust me, my partner here is going to be asking you a few questions about any events which may have been happening over the past couple of days. I turn and look at Kyle. I say, you're going to need to ask her and get any kind of statement from her about any activities that may have occurred in and around her house in the past 24 to 48 hours. I kind of look back at her and I say, Miss Smith, I really would appreciate any honesty an answer to my partner's questions that you can provide for him.
Well, you might as well come in. I just finished baking some cookies. At least he's handsome.
I kind of turn to him and I
walks away from the door.
I look at him and I go, "What am I, chopped liver? I'm going to be back in Steve's rooming house. You get the statement, enjoy the cookies and the tea, and have a good night getting you some rest right now, okay? Trust me, if anything happens, you'll hear the gunfire."
And should I come running or should I take cover?
I give him a serious look and put my finger right in the middle of his chest. Don't forget who we are and whose territory we're in. We're down here. We're Treasury agents. We normally deal with prohibition, guns, that kind of thing, not violent crimes, right? Okay. Yeah, if there's a problem, I am going to expect you to click your heels and come a running. Okay.
Right, I'll be there.
I go back around to Steve's place. As I'm going back there, I'm going to kind of, when I get into the back, I'm going to get some distance between me and his door and just kind of look around the little yard. I know I've tracked some steps here already. I've been back here twice, been in and out 4 times now. So I may have destroyed some evidence. But at this point, I'm going to be looking around to see if I can discern anything that may be different than my shoe prints.
There definitely is a set of prints that are not yours. The size is different, and where the snow is compacted, there's damage to the sole which is not present on your shoe print. So it's definitely not your shoe, but it's definitely an adult's shoe, so it's not the kid's.
Okay.
But as you're making these observations, one car pulls up on the street, just a regular car.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're recognizing that it's Washburn behind the wheel, a police car pulls up with some officers. And Washburn, as he parks, he's you can see him hunched over the steering wheel, right? Just the silhouette of him. You can see like half his face is lit by the street light.
Okay.
Right?
He
just hunched over the wheel, gathering himself for a minute.
I'll make my way back down the breezeway between the houses and try and get him while he's still kind of gathering himself. I'll move around to the driver's side and rap on the window.
He rolls it down.
"You look tired, Washburn."
Good detective work.
Yeah, well, maybe one day you can help me get in with the Bureau of Investigation.
Who did you find?
Friend of mine named Steve. This isn't the meat grinder you saw earlier, but it is a little unusual.
Oh.
You won't follow me? Okay. I kind of look at the other officers there in the car with him, or they were in the car that showed up separately. Okay. Right before he starts to get the window started to roll, I put my hand on it to keep him from rolling it up. I look back at the officers getting out of the car and I say, "How well do you know them?"
Given this neighborhood, 60-40.
So they're good enough to stay here on the street and keep eyes while me and you have a conversation in the house?
Yeah, that way they can't tell anybody anything.
I prefer it if we could keep it that way. I'd take my hand off the window and, wait for him to get out of the car, and then still with Gladstone in the other hand.
Right. So he goes over to talk to the cops. and assigns them places. So, do you have anybody talking to
Miss Smith?
Other tenants? Oh, Miss Smith?
Yeah, the landlord. Yeah, I got a treasury agent here. He's a new recruit. He's not as green as the grass, but he's got a few years on him.
But you gave him that duty because Miss Smith isn't some hot little number?
I got a date this Friday. I'm already taken.
Honest man. Love it. So he makes a note. Miss Smith. And then he walks away from the officers toward the house.
Okay.
So fill me in before I see what I'm going to see.
As we're going down the breezeway, I explained to him, you know, my relationship with Steve, that he was a friend of mine. We both hung out together occasionally at the boxing gym.
Oh, you box?
I give him a smile. I've been known to break a few noses every now and then. Okay. But Steve said he was down on his luck. I made an offer to try and get him a job on my family's firm. A couple of days later, he's not showing up. So I figured I might as well check in on him since he said he was unemployed at the time. When I arrived and I look at him dead in the face, the lights were on. There's no sound coming from inside. The door was locked. I purposely looked down at the door jamb where he can see that the door had to be jimmied open.
But fortunately for you, the door was already open.
If that's how you want to write it in.
Is that the truth?
The door was open.
Okay.
By me.
No lockpicking course in the Prohibition Bureau?
More like pock picketing. Remember, we deal with the cash, not the B&E. Anyway,
well, that's obvious.
I let the door swing open since we're standing on the front porch, and I, you know, that's where the body is. I haven't moved anything. It should still be there, right? As I swing the door open.
Oh, it's still
okay.
There.
That's what I want to make sure. Steve was
so like he's taking a moment.
Yeah.
You know, like he knows there's a dead man inside, but now he's seeing a dead man inside.
Steve was face down on the floor. I made a quick cursory check of the house to make sure no perpetrators were inside the building. Returned to his body, rolled him over, and that's when I discovered, and we kind of, as we're walking up to the body, looks like somebody went at his chest with a melon baller.
They teach you that kind of poetic flair at Harvard?
I did take a couple of poetry classes now that you mention it.
Yeah, that's...
You're probably wondering why I asked you to come down here.
No, I figured that out from your questions about the cops.
I set the Gladstone bag down next to the little ratty chair he's got. Pull up a chair. Let's talk for a second.
So what kind of weapon does this? This is not shotgun. This is not...
There are no bullet holes in the walls as I'm kind of pointing around, you know, and I pointedly make a gesture at the ceiling. Definitely no bullet holes in the ceiling.
Point taken. And of course, the landlady was surprised when you informed her that her tenant was dead.
Yeah, for all she knew, he had skipped out. He was late on his rent for 2 months. And I'm saying this as I'm kind of opening up the Gladstone bag with one hand, and we're having this conversation. I'm pointing around at the ceiling, and I start pulling out files and putting them on the little dirty coffee table. I kind of make a little space. The news clipping about the massacre, the news clippings about the book, the file on the O'Shaughnessy's.
What is he's pointing at the auction house robbery. What does this have to do with it?
I don't know. But there's something. That's how it all got started. This is what dragged me into it with Steve. I point at Steve and say he knew something was going on. And you're going to have to pardon me while I scroll back.
Flipping through your notes.
Flipping through my notes. When I ran into Steve at the gym, he had a shiner, and that's how our conversation started. Apparently, he worked at an accounting house, or was an accountant for an auction house run by the Gavigans. That's where, and I pointed the news article, that's where this got stolen from. Now, I asked Steve if he had anything else he could give me. He said he'd been making copies of books. So I got a few copies from him, and I have somebody at my family's firm taking a look at them right now. Now, they're not forensics. They're not deep accountants.
So it's not official. It's just a favor.
I look at Steve and I say at this point, and I look at the article, I don't know how I could make this official, but it is personal. Yeah. At this point, it's very personal. And I flip to the article about the investor coming on with my family's firm. And I point at Xavier, tapping his head as if to wake him up and see if he's listening to me right now in the back of my mind. This guy, you're not going to believe this. So I went down to the Bowery to do some investigation, some digging around.
Does that really have tattoos all over his face?
Yeah, him and his bookkeepers, his two cohorts.
Okay.
I'm down there incognito doing some investigation. I discussed the opportunity to have employment with a couple of guys painting up a warehouse door. They say that they know somebody I can talk to, and lo and behold, and I kind of raise my hands, up high, randomly at this place where I'm at. This guy, and I tap the picture again. This guy happens to be in the basement.
And he's special. Now, he doesn't.
I don't know. And
well, you have some theory, right? Like you're saying like he's management, or he's the management, or
he is the guy apparently who's taken over O'Shaughnessy's old territory. The Morgan Company, that's Xavier Morgan.
Oh. So there's a name.
Yes.
Xavier. With an X? With an X?
I would guess so. He didn't spell it out for me. That's usually how it's spelled.
Yeah. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I've been hearing some conversation around the station when the O'Shaughnessy's first started having trouble, that places that were going to be hit were marked with an X.
Really? Could be why they were down there painting everything back up.
Oh, I mean, the O'Shaughnessy's didn't take care of anything. Why spend money on paint when you can spend money on bullets?
That's true. But it gets a little weirder.
Great.
Now, not foot in shoe in wall weird.
Not much is.
So I pull out the card. I pull out the little idol, the little talisman that Steve had, and I put them on the table. This was the card was given to me in my conversation with Xavier. And that
Somebody
little
didn't finish it.
I do pause. Oh, it was finished
And
when I got it.
He's definitely looking at you for a reaction. He's a sharp guy, tired as he is.
Oh, he definitely could tell that makes me uncomfortable.
And this figurine
was in Steve's hand when I rolled him over, and it rolled out on the floor. You seen anything like this before?
Yeah. Earlier today, we found not exactly the same, but I feel they look the same. Same stone.
Did you find it at the massacre?
Yeah, under a body. A body that didn't, really match.
Match what? What you mean? Like there weren't a whole lot of parts up there that were matched?
Of the victims.
Do you have tattoos?
No, and was surprisingly whole, except for the hole which ended his life. About a 45 caliber hole.
Oh, okay. I know that's
that detail's not in the papers. It's not to be.
Yeah. Oh, nothing I've been talking about or investigating is in the papers either.
Yeah, I would hope not. You'd have a long talk with the men in the white coats, I think.
Well, I tried to work that out with my professor from college. It's been a little nerve-wracking. You probably saw the culmination of that when I showed up at your crime scene.
Well, yeah. Okay, so we have two little weird figurines. We have inexplicable deaths, not on the same scale.
No, definitely not on the same scale.
But no one's been able to figure out how Dr. Call and his O'Shaughnessy relatives and whatever were torn apart. I shouldn't use the word torn apart. I should use rent asunder. That's going to be the official lingo in the report.
I do have another question for you, though. What do you know about Officer John Malone? And his recent activities?
His recent activities?
Within the last 72 hours. Last 3 days.
If Malone is not on the O'Shaughnessy's payroll, well, do the O'Shaughnessys even have a payroll anymore? That's a question. Anyway, if you'd asked me 3 days ago, or yesterday, I would have said he was on their payroll. No question.
Have you noticed anything unusual about him at all? Have you got any different habits?
In the last 3 days, he's been AWOL. I wasn't expecting to see him. He and his cronies.
I pull out the card that has the phone number on it. Say, not too long after I was down at the warehouse district, the docks, Malone shows up at my doorstep after I made inquiries at his precinct about his whereabouts and the missing police officers.
That was your conversation with York this morning?
With York, this would have been a day ago or so.
No, I mean at the site of the massacre. You and York seem like you knew each other.
Yeah, because I had met him at the precinct. The day before that, I was making my way down to the warehouse area and stopped off at the precinct just to check in with the local patties. No offense. And mentioned Malone. He said that he was AWOL. And I was just inquiring. I let him know I was just following up on the missing persons that have been going on down there. But the next day, after I left my professor's office and was walking back to the house, here's John Malone standing in my driveway. He gives me this card.
Might be unsettling.
Let me just say, and I look at the card, the tarot card, I've had a feeling that I was going to be contacted or somebody was going to get in touch with me sooner or later.
I just mean he's a pretty large man.
In the ring, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And the guy didn't look in too good a health to me anyway. So you haven't seen him. You haven't physically seen John in the past few days. Aside from the massacre.
Just at the crime scene. Yeah.
Did you notice anything different about him?
No, but I wasn't looking to either. I wasn't expecting him to help in any way.
Okay.
Are you telling me there's something I should like? Does he have tattoos on his face now and I missed it?
Nah. The next time you have a conversation with him, or the next time you see him, try and engage him with conversation, but get him outside into the cold, okay? What I want you to do is when you're talking to him, I want you to see if he's breathing. And you're going to know if he is or isn't, because he should, if he's breathing, have that mist coming out of his mouth. And this time I'm giving him a serious look in his eyes because I know this sounds crazy and I want to see his reaction.
One officer to another. I must have misheard you.
No. And I'm still looking him in the face, deadpan serious. No, you didn't mishear me.
So are you suggesting that John Malone is now in the habit of holding his breath for extended periods of time?
Well, if you can breathe through your nose and talk through your mouth, it's definitely a great habit that he's picked up from somewhere. But most people who are alive, whenever you're outside in the cold talking, you're going to have fog coming out of your mouth. The whole time during my conversation with John Malone, I never saw it once. And once I noticed it and started paying attention to his chest, it didn't look like he was breathing. And I put up my hands and I say, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Sounds crazy.
And it is. And I look over at Steve. And then I tap the newspaper clipping with the massacre. Any crazier than any of this?
This is unexplained. That dead men walking and talking. Well, I don't know if I'm religious enough to believe in that.
I lean over in the chair. I kind of tilt my head down. And when I look up at him, I say, foot in a shoe stuck in a wall.
Hey, I may not have gone to a great school like you did, but I did debate. Yes, very weird. Not evidence of living dead men.
I get it. But can you try it? Just do a little shoe leather work. Real simple, real easy. You don't have to do it out of purpose or anything like that. But if you happen to be able to get him involved in a conversation outside and it's cold, I just want you to pay really close attention. And
This
if you
is making my eye hurt.
Or if you don't.
Okay, I have to ask you some questions. I understand. I understand what you're asking.
I pull out the blackjack and I say, here, gum always helps me relieve a little tension. You want some blackjack?
Yeah, it's great stuff. Now, so he starts chewing away happily, the smell filling the kitchen. You know, it's not going to last very long. It's one of those ephemeral joys. But I need to ask you for questions. Have you been sleeping?
Yeah, a little lighter than normal, but I've been resting.
Are you in the habit of becoming intoxicated by any means?
No.
Can anyone vouch for you not drinking, not going down to Chinatown and laying down on one of their dream couches?
I mean, if you're asking me if I smoke opium, and if I can prove that I don't, I can't prove it, but I'm going to tell you no. I pull out the badge and put it on the table.
Well, that is the last thing that will be proof. I'm sorry. No offense.
You know, just idly tapping it, you know, elbow on my knee, idly tapping the badge on the coffee table. You know, I like the Treasury. I got involved with it because of my family. My family didn't like it because I got involved with the law. And if you know anything about accountants, they can get, even if they're keeping everything above board, they can get a little twicky if they think somebody's looking over their shoulder, crossing columns. But I'm not going to be in the Treasury for much longer. My goal isn't to stay here. So if I'm committed to the law and I look him dead in the face, why do you think I asked about your police officers outside? Why do you think I have a Treasury agent down here and not a bunch of cops? And I look at all the stuff piled up on the coffee table, and I'm telling you something.
Obviously investigating, but my last question.
Okay.
Are you currently, or have you in the past, undergone psychiatric treatment for delusions, hallucinations?
No.
Then why are you talking about this? He's just really frustrated.
Have I tried to convince you of anything that what I saw is true?
No.
Okay. All I'm asking you to do is to understand, and I'm really trying to convince him and persuade him that this is just what I believe I saw. I just need corroborating evidence of my observation. You know, this is what they taught us in psychology. If you see a behavior, you can't rely on your own recognizance to determine if it's true or not. You need an outside observer. And right now, you're the only one I'm really trusting besides you and York. I'm not asking you to go out of your way. If it's happenstance that you run into Malone, hopefully he's outside. But wherever you're at, just pay close attention to how he behaves.
Okay, I'll ask you for a percentile roll. The arguments that you've presented are modifying this roll, but at this time, no evidence will be forthcoming about what happened on this roll.
The argument is, or the attempt is strong. I'm basically reinforcing the fact that I'm not trying to make him believe. I need his help in corroborating what I believe.
Well, let's put this part of our conversation to the side. We'll make a gentleman's agreement to never talk about it in public or if I get my way again. And let's deal with this.
Yeah. I kind of, as he's saying this, I'm starting to gather everything back up, reorganize it all, and slowly filter it all back into the Gladstone.
Now you're hearing people coming down the walkway, right? And there's voices calling and that sort of stuff. And there's definitely 2 or maybe 3 people coming.
Okay.
And that quickly resolves into men in white with, a stretcher to remove the body.
Okay.
And Washburn is in the door. Was like, "Not yet, fellas. We're still taking notes. Did my photographer come?" Yeah, there's "Yeah, I'm here." And he's like, "Oh, it's that guy."
Get out of the way, to make sure that they've got access to the scene. If I have to step outside,
you stay here with me in the kitchen. We have to keep an eye on your friend, because I got to tell you, this photographer's a ghoul.
Okay.
All right, so an old kind of stooped guy comes in, really tiny rectangular glasses with a blue tint. He's he just keeps wringing his hands, and then he asks some quick questions about what kind of photographs do you want?
I point, one from the door, one from the hallway back there pointing towards the door, one from above, one from the side over there, one from this window area here by the kitchen, inside. Right. Should be good enough to capture the entire scene.
He proceeds to do all that. He even has this big tripod to suspend the camera from.
Okay.
And Washburn's on him like, "You take special care processing these photographs, and I don't want to hear about any being sold."
Look from Washburn to the photographer. This is obviously something that they've had contentions about before.
I've learned my lesson. Yeah.
I'll let the photographers do their work. I know with everybody else here in Washburn's stance on the conversation, I'll just ask him, did you find any other information about the massacre? Any leads on anything coming from it at all? Any information about the private detective's office next door, the coroner's office?
The private detective is in the hospital. He has a concussion. And the reporter that tipped us off, nobody knows where he is.
Really?
And all of the corpses, as I mentioned, except one, are known members of the O'Shaughnessy mob. Although Dr. Edward Call is kind of a different figure there, if you know what I mean. He's not a smuggler gang, or he wasn't a smuggler gangster. He was a doctor.
So basically just there to stitch everybody up.
Yeah, but in the back of my mind, I think he was calling some shots.
Well, he had a rap sheet for abductions. Some investigation was going on about his background.
Yes, that's true. And when I was a younger man, I was a part of that investigation on the periphery.
Well, thanks for giving me a scapegoat for getting into your crime scene. I kind of smile at him.
He, again, we don't know. I mean, we know cause of death, but we don't know the method. The coroner speculates mechanical separation, like in a butcher's or ox cart.
I shake my head. That didn't look like any.
Well, there's no way to get cattle up there anyway.
Well, not just that, but those wounds weren't caused by an edged weapon. Nothing
No.
looked like it was a cut or a slice or a dice. That looked like ripping and tearing.
Yes, that's the only thing that the wounds are consistent with, is them being
Pulled apart.
Pulled apart. But we don't know. For example, let's say I were to get 2 powerful oxen and were to attach them to you, different parts of you, like one arm and one leg, for example.
You're talking
and
about
set them,
drawing. Yeah.
set them moving apart. They have the capacity to pull you apart. However, they don't have the capacity to pull you apart without leaving ligature marks.
Mm-hmm. And you probably didn't find any bruising around wrists or ankles or anything?
No. We did find some crushing. And that's pretty disturbing.
Like forearms and shins? The shin bones and forearms were crushed.
And
Yeah,
but also also upper body.
Like in a bear hug.
Well, you've already ruined my day with your weird. So I'll return the favor. You're a Boston man, born and raised.
Yeah.
You must have had lobster once or twice in your life.
A few times down at Fisherman's Wharf. I smile.
Consistent with, that's where the mechanical separator came to mind, like pliers or clamps, and then one of the coroners made a joke about giant lobster claws.
Looking him in the face, I say, I'll spare you the commentary.
So yeah, either someone was able to get some kind of large machine with large clamps up those stairs,
or you've got a guy
and then
walking with lobster hands,
attached them to 15 guys.
Not likely.
Or yeah, some guy walking around with giant lobster claws. Yeah.
And we're kind of having this conversation as the photos are being taken. I'm stretching it out to let the work with these guys to get done, because I do have, in the back of my mind, I've got one last bit of information that I'm going to part to Washburn. Okay. So I'll, continue to make a little bit of idle conversation with him until then. As I'm walking him back to his car, saying, I really got to check in on Kyle. Hopefully,
Kyle's leaning against Washburn's car.
Okay.
With a cookie.
I'll snatch it out of his hand. Is he already taking a bite out of it?
Like as you're approaching?
Yeah. I'll snatch it out of his hand. Thanks for saving me something.
Hey,
Yeah, you got the cushy job.
did I? But then he gets a closer look at Washburn, and
So
the
yeah,
levity stops.
with the us three now standing here by the driver's side of Washburn's car, I say I got one last thing to tell you. And I look over at the car with the kids. They're still there, right? Okay.
Like this, looking over the backseat.
Not the most reliable of witnesses as I turn back to Washburn. There's something else I'd like you to keep your eye out for. A ghost.
He flinches.
Let's
not the
say,
ghost part. There's something else I'd like you to keep an eye out for. He involuntarily flinches, and then you say, "A ghost," and he just kind of relaxes.
if you've got any older mug shots or anything of the fist, you might want to refresh yourselves on them. I look back at the kids in the car, back to him. Supposedly, in the past couple of days, someone that looks like him, or may just be one of his kids, was seen around this house.
Really? Oh, wait. There is a report. Huh. There was a report of a scuffle downtown by the library. About someone seeing Mickey get in a fist fight with some, I don't know, overweight gentleman. But we're pretty sure that Mickey's dead. He's not been out of sight for this long without making trouble.
Mickey O'Shaughnessy.
The family certainly thought he was dead.
Well, if you hear any rumors about somebody who looks like the Fist, or at least a younger version of him, or maybe one of his kids, close enough, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, they all have the hair, but none of them really look like him.
Like I said, though, I look back at the car with the kids in it. Not the most reliable of witnesses, and a ghost probably is about the only probably that they probably had any idea of how to put it. But they seem to think that that's who it was. Just younger. That's why the older kid thinks it's just one of his other brats that he's got running around.
So again, he's rubbing at his eye. Okay.
I'll put my hand on Washburn. Yeah, I put my hand on Washburn's shoulder. I, giving it a nice rub as he's rubbing his eye. I reach over and I grab the door handle to the car, open the door for him. You've been getting some rest? And I kind of try and start moving him as I'm asking that question into his car.
Right. Because I got to send the officers away. So he gets back out of the car. Right. He's visibly willing himself.
Okay.
Back into his lieutenant's, posture and voice. The photographer comes out. The ambulance attendants come out with the body. And he gives some instructions to the uniforms. Right.
As he's instructing the uniforms, I'm going to turn to Kyle. So a lot of what they've been gotten you doing lately is just stakeout?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing.
How would you like to do something a little bit different?
Love to.
You know, we got a spare desk in our office.
Yes.
You're just going to have to be able to tolerate Bill.
I love Bill. Bill's like the brother I never had.
Why don't we get you moved into our office?
Okay.
I open the Gladstone bag, pull out the clipping with Xavier's photo of my father. I said, the first thing I want you to do is find out everything you can about this guy right here. And I tap Xavier's picture. Everything about Morgan Co. What companies they're connected from publicly, everything you can. Any traceable money or funds that appear to be above board. If he's holding a company that's holding another company, I want to know whose holding company is in that pocket too.
Yeah, I understand how the money trail works. I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay.
So you think this guy is responsible for this hit?
I have my suspicions as I, kind of watching Washburn. I have my suspicions, but I have no proof.
Washburn's on his way over to talk to the landlady.
Okay. But the most uncomfortable thing about it is this guy seems to know stuff about me. And now all of a sudden I look at the newspaper clipping that he's got. He's ingratiating himself with my family and my family's company. It doesn't sit right.
It opens you up for blackmail at least.
I look him dead in the face. How? I'm squeaky clean. I kind of do one of these. How? I'm squeaky clean. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. The only thing everybody's got on me is I'm not married and I don't really date. If there's only one addiction I got, it's to the job.
Okay. And what is your job, Agent Thornton?
Treasury.
Okay. And your investigation is to, largely to deal with illegal alcohol. Is that correct?
And sometimes firearm, contraband.
Sure,
but mostly,
sure.
But the company line.
That's right. We're the Prohibition Bureau. Okay. So this Morgan is the new smuggler in town.
There's definitely the potential that knocked off the Shaughnessy family, took over the territory.
Right. And to make sure his money is correctly handled, he is dealing with a certain accounting firm.
Yes. An uncomfortable situation.
And I don't think it would be that hard for the newspapers to spin that into something worth talking about, lies or not.
His line of thought rings true to me, and it's making me nervous. Reaching in the pocket, grab, a fresh piece of blackjack, looking around. Look, I don't have a meeting with my father until next Friday. And I don't really know how to go about keeping this guy as clean as I can and keeping him away from the family. So I'm asking you to dig anything up on this guy that you can.
I will. It's gonna take time.
Give me everything you got by next Friday.
Okay. You want to know what what Mrs. Smith had to say?
Is this Washburn when he's walking up? Oh no, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, no, she didn't hear any disturbances. No, she doesn't have a very high opinion of the deceased. She didn't notice any visitors of any persuasion, male or female. She was very annoyed that he would go out late at night and come back even later. And she ranted for quite a while about how he wanted her to do his laundry for him, which she refused because she did it once and it was so sweaty and gross. She thought he'd be a better tenant, because he was an accountant, but she was disappointed.
Well, not much there, other than his late night habits. Thinking about being at the gym and seeing Steve there on occasion, was that usually his habit to be there? Like, he never was really there during the day. He's always there late at night.
Right, when the most people were there.
When the most people were there.
Yeah.
And
he wasn't really there to box.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, nothing good. Was hoping maybe she might have seen these kids' ghosts, but doesn't sound like she saw anything. Either that or she's just keeping her nose clean.
I don't know. I think if she saw anyone obviously connected to the O'Shaughnessy's, that she would report it, because she has a hate on for them like you would not believe.
Okay. Well, at least I'll trust your judgment on that.
So I think the only people she hates more than the police are the O'Shaughnessy's.
It's believable.
She tapped the paper, Alex. She tapped the paper and said it wasn't punishment enough.
Really? Let me see that article with Xavier's photo in it.
He hands it back.
I take it and I head over to the front door, possibly passing Washburn, or on his way back to his car.
Washburn's inside, conducting his interview with her. Right.
So I, walking in, I've got the newspaper clipping in my left hand with the photo ready to show her. I say, sorry to interrupt, but I got to ask you a question, Miss Smith. And I show her the image of Xavier, and I tap the photo and I say, have you ever seen this man or had a conversation with this man? You ever had a conversation associated with the Morgan Company, or anybody associated with the Morgan Company?
No.
All right. Thank you, Miss Smith. I just wanted to confirm something.
Right. And you kind of intruded on Washburn, who's, his pencils hanging over his notepad. Is there anything else, Agent Thornton?
No, we're going to wrap it up.
All right. You have a good night.
Go back to the car. Kyle, I don't know what you got plans for, but I got to wrap it up. I know you've been up quite a bit, and you're going to have a lot of work on your hands coming up, but I look forward to seeing you in the office.
I'll be there. I'm just going to make a report to Bill. He said a few hours ago that he was on his way home, so I know he's still at the office.
That is, and I'm saying this as I'm walking towards the car, that is Bill's home, Kyle. Open the door for the kids. You guys didn't burn up all my heating oil, did you?
No, sir.
All right.
It's cold. It's cold in the car. They didn't use it.
Did you turn it off? I thought I turned it on for you.
Well, you did. It got nice and warm, and that was nice. And then we,
All right. Uh, Time to call it a night. Thanks for the watch on the car.
anytime, anytime, Agent Alexander Thornton.
Keep your nose clean, kids. Okay. And I put the Gladstone bag in the. I'm walking around. Put the Gladstone bag in the passenger side seat. Get the Chesterfield, kind of tightened up since it's cold in the car now. I was hoping to have, a little bit of warmth left in there. And before the kids take off, I roll down the window and hand them the other pack of blackjack.
Little one's really happy about that.
Pointing at the older one, I say, "Is he your brother?"
Yeah.
Take care of him. All right.
I will.
Roll up the window. Head back to the house.
Okay.
Kind of on my way there, I'm thinking about, there's definitely got to be some kind of connection between what Steve was doing, the books he gave us. I can't think of any other reason why Steve would have been killed. So there's got to be some kind of connection in his copies. I'm also mulling over my comment that I made to Washburn about the Bureau of Investigation and thinking about what Kyle said, being involved in the Treasury and being prohibition. I'm more interested in the law and law enforcement than I am in chasing money trails. So I'm kind of thinking that if something goes good, if this investigation goes good, and I can come out of it on the bright side of it, I'm going to ask Bill for his blessing about applying for the Bureau.
Yeah. The streets of Boston are rolling by the car. Snow is definitely melting. The streets are slick and reflecting the street lamps. The shops are mostly closed on your way home. Coming into the housing neighborhoods, it's the exact opposite. As the downtown city lights are shutting down. The home fires are burning warmly. Hearths are warm and lit. The hustle and bustle of nightly life in family homes is reflected in the cheery, glowing windows. But some houses, totally dark, empty, lacking any heat, lacking any life. And you know that your house is exactly the same.
So pulling up, get into the driveway, collect everything, make sure everything that I have kept is in the Gladstone. Get out of the car, still kind of looking around. As I'm getting out, I'm sideways eye, down the driveway towards the back of the house. As I'm walking towards the front steps, left eye sideways, checking down the sidewalk, reaching into my pocket, grabbing my keys, going for the door. My head is kind of turned sideways, that paranoia twinge to have my ear listen for something on the footsteps.
Nothing to hear But down the block, by one of the many oak trees, lining the street, there's that little pinprick of light and someone drawing on a cigarette.
Go into the house. Door shut behind me, deadbolt, lock. Normal habit is, when I'm out of the house, all the curtains are, the gauze curtains are pulled, everything. Gladstone bag down. As I'm kneeling down, I undo the clip on the ankle holster for the 38. And I go ahead and draw my pistol. The 45 or the 32 is in the ankle, 45 in my hand. Go back around to the front where the picture windows are, kind of looking down the street. I'm going to stand here for a while and just kind of keep my eyes down in that area.
Okay.
If nothing else kind of occurs, then I'm going to go ahead and make my way through the house, starting with the first floor. Not in a police style, shoulder to the wall, but as a casual walk, gun to my side, but I'm ready to pull the gun up in case anything steps out of a doorway or into a doorway.
Right.
So I'm heading back to the kitchen. When you come in through the main doorway, that hallway, stairway going up to second story, hallway going straight back to the kitchen back door, check the backyard, check the back door, make sure it's locked, no damage or anything. Same thing. Make my way around to the steps, go upstairs, check front bedroom, check back bedroom, check bathroom.
Everything's as you left.
Kind of coat off, thrown across the bed, shirt undone, going to the bathroom, kind of sitting down on the toilet, getting shaving cream ready. Shave, no shower. Just too tired to take a shower. And then I'm going to go to bed.
Okay.
45 under the pillow, 38 in the nightstand. Or 32 in the nightstand, sorry.
Yep. I guess there's a kind of a subconscious desire to get a 38.
Yeah. Actually, I've been thinking about trying to get a shotgun lately. Maybe a pistol's not going to be enough after seeing that massacre scene.
Right. And in that moment, thinking about the shotgun, did you speak out loud?
No. I'm not sure if I did or not.
In this empty house?
Sitting up in bed. Now, the only thing in here, bed, window behind me, feet on the ground, looking down the hallway, closet to the left of the entrance. I'm looking down the hallway, but keeping a side eye on the closet door. And I say, yeah, I've been thinking about getting a shotgun. And in the back of my head, I go, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. Am I talking to myself? Am I hearing things?
And the house is just, well, as quiet as an old house can get.
In a thaw. The creaking of the home, popping of the siding. I mean, I'm going to stay up for a while longer until I start to get tired. Okay. If nothing happens, then I gotta get some rest.
And it has been a long day. It has been an emotional day. And although your mind is racing, You know, your heartbeat starts to slow, your breathing starts to deepen, the comfortable bed starts to beckon.
Yeah.
But as you're drifting off to sleep, it's not your heartbeat that you're hearing. It's the pounding of hooves. And we'll close the curtain on this section. Wow, investigation.
Well, I mean, I think as a player reflection, in a sense, and this is something I've kind of been with everything going on, just something that's been mulling around in the back of my head. I have been trying as the player to make these connections, right? So
Right.
even during the session when Kyle's saying, hey, you know, you're a treasury agent, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Me as Brian, as the player, have been thinking about that too. You know, what was my tenuous connection, my tenuous end to get the ball rolling? So I've been reviewing my notes and saying, okay, you know, where do I think some of this stuff is going? So it's more on the player side of it than it is Alex's side, you know.
Right.
And there were certainly some questions that I as Alex needed to have answered.
Right.
The whole thing with Malone, you know. So the last time,
how suspicious is Malone? Yeah.
How suspicious is Malone? I need to have somebody else who can help me keep an eye on that guy, because I can't be hanging around the police department.
But just imagine the day that Washburn has had, which started far earlier than yours.
Way earlier, yeah.
And then he's been dealing with all these impossible things, and it's like, the Prohibition Bureau wants me to go to some house.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. And then he gets there and it's like, I gotta tell you, I think someone on the force is a living dead man.
Yeah. I didn't say he was dead.
He's just not breathing.
Merely implied that the normal events,
normal people breathe.
I'm second guessing myself. You know, I just want you to, you know, let's follow the scientific method here. All right, buddy. Can you verify my observation for me? And I also knew that I needed help with the paper investigation.
Yeah, because it takes so much time.
Going on. Yeah. And I kind of also wanted this to be like, okay, Alex has these investigative response. He is a member of the Treasury Agency. He knows he's got a job to do. He's got this personal investigation that he's trying to get on. So asking, now that I've got Kyle,
right,
it's kind of a great way to represent this, like, from a player's perspective. This isn't playing on the character level. I mean, in Alex's mind, he's delegating responsibility. Even though he's not the head of the department, he's heading the investigation, but he knows he needs help. As a from the player's perspective, it's a great way to show that Alex is really trying to take the investigation of Steve's death more seriously than he is the book's disappearance. And he's shirking his own paperwork duties by trying to pull somebody else into the office to do the work for him.
Yeah, sure.
You know, in Alex's mind, I'm just delegating duties. We don't have enough resources in our office. We need some more help. Can we get this recruit in here to take over some of the paperwork and do some, you know, preliminary observations and some paper trail work?
Right. One detail I should mention.
Mm-hmm.
Your files include the sketches that you had made of the different members of the Morgan crew that you had
His
met.
cohort. Yeah.
Yeah, so that includes, your recollection of the tattoos on their faces. The article, which contains, the photograph of Morgan and your father, does not include the tattoos.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's very obviously the same man. Just
But without my sand tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for including that. I appreciate that. I did not even think to ask that when we brought up the article myself. So thank you.
So yeah, when you're showing the files, the first thing that came to my mind is the sketches.
Okay.
So Washburn comments on the tattoos and stuff on the sketches, but when you definitely showed the landlady, right?
Yeah.
The article, from the periodical, right, from your father's accounting firm. So she doesn't comment on the tattoos because she doesn't see any, because there aren't any. So.
And I know there was one. I hate to put it this way. Can I do this isn't really so much a retcon, but can I include a little piece of information? I know, I'm pretty sure Alex would have covered this with Washburn.
Okay, let's hear
the shoe print.
Oh, yeah.
While we're, he and I are out front and having our initial conversation, I am pretty sure, even though I as a player overlooked it, I'm pretty sure that is something that Alex would have pointed out, saying, hey, here's where my tracks are. Here's the only thing that looks different. None of this doesn't match any of Steve's. It's not as obvious as the tattoos. It's just one of those kind of clue pieces that I want to make sure that I am making a note of.
Right. Washburn wasn't in any condition to be conducting a proper investigation.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. By the time your conversation got around to that, the footprints would have been destroyed by all the other people coming down. Yeah. So they won't be able to use it, but you've told them that somebody was there, right? That there are witnesses that someone was there. So we can work with that.
Okay. All right. Not bad at all. Pretty good. Yeah. There's always more information than there are answers, and that's the thing about an investigation is it's just
what do I act on? When do I act on
it? and where should I go next? I mean, right. I am inclined. Well, wait a second. No, the reporter disappeared for the tip-off, but the private investigator is still in the hospital.
Yep.
Right. That's what. Okay. So that's kind of one of my next. For Alex, that's one of the only connection between what what he's looking at now, and the event at the coroner's office and the massacre. The PI is the only connection I can make between the two. So, I mean, both as player and as character, I'm pretty sure that's where Alex is going to want to head next. By now, well, last session, I believe it was Wednesday, right?
Right. It was Wednesday, so we're moving into Thursday.
Okay. That's definitely something I want to try and get done before I quote unquote have to show up for my date.
Right. Talking to
try to go to the hospital to follow up with this PI.
Yeah. Edward Driscoll, Confidential Investigations.
Okay. That's good. you know. So my question is, from the player side, trying to use the language, did it become more apparent when I was actually trying to say, hey, this is the skill I'm trying to focus on?
Yeah.
Because I can only think of 2 instances where I was trying to actually make use of a skill without saying, oh, I've got this on my sheet, I want to make a roll. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did it feel in return? Because sometimes I'm just going to waive it, right? Because it's a normal use of the skill under normal circumstances. So
the first one is trying to use psychology to understand the kids' mental states and their relationship, whether or not they're going to trust me.
Right. So my feeling there was that although you have studied psychology, you are not a psychologist.
True.
And you're certainly not a child psychologist.
True.
Right. And so therefore, you're going to have to roll.
Okay. Right. Yeah. No, it's good. I just wanted to make what I'm interested in. And then the second one, of course, persuades. I am trying to persuade them, which I'm pretty sure you got that one, or it would seem more obvious. But do you think that was a good, easy way to kind of use that from the player side to say, hey, because there's only so much language you can use to try and hint at what the intention of the character is without saying, I'm trying to determine the state of mind of this child who is not my patient. Right. Given the fact that I am not a psychologist or a psychoanalyst,
Right. So in BRP, this gets to be a cloudier issue, or maybe it becomes easier depending on your perspective. Like if you're really trying to signal to me that you want to use this skill, I think it gets harder in BRP because there are other things, right?
Yeah.
Like winning someone over with your charm and your repartee, right? That's not the bargain skill. That's not the fast talk skill, right? That's not psychology skill. That is an attribute roll.
Yeah.
Right. So like appearance, done as an attribute roll. So appearance times 5, that kind of thing. And for example.
No, it makes perfect sense.
And so there are a couple of different avenues to reach these points. And then in this particular case, we've got the badge, which they probably think is cool because they listen to the radio about the G-men fighting the gangsters, right? Mm-hmm. And so that boosts credit rating, let's say, and you're obviously a successful person that commands respect.
And there was some bribery involved.
So there's a lot of things that stack that deck in your favor.
Yeah.
Right. Had you tried to conduct some kind of forensic examination, right, which is definitely also not the wheelhouse of the Treasury Department.
Treasury, yeah, it's way out.
Right. Then and in fact, this would be penalized roles, right? So, yeah.
If we want to stay within genre, right, and within the era, forensics as we know it was barely even a developing notion at this time. I mean,
fingerprints, shoe prints.
Yeah, about pretty much the investigation of like breaking and entering, damage to the door frame, and things like that.
Yeah,
very rudimentary forensic investigation.
Right. Yeah. So it's all right, I think. So I guess the question I have now is, because you've had a long conversation with Washburn about, this is what I know, what do you know?
Yeah.
Well, some of what you know, I don't want to know. Stop talking about the stuff I don't want to know.
Yeah. If you don't want to know what I've been seeing. Foot in the shoe in the wall, Washburn.
It's not relevant. um, I guess the question that we always need to be aware of in an investigation game is, do you feel like you have avenues to explore, or do you feel like you're grasping at straws?
Oh, man. Yeah. Definitely. Because like I just said, I can definitely see both from, and this is where that player and character perspective collide. I, as character and player, know that the next step is to go to the PI. He's the only survivor. He's the only contact. Anyway, I'm going to make some kind of connection between Steve and the book, the O'Shaughnessy's and Xavier, and the bloodbath. Because there were hints and clues that I was going to have to watch for something. The massacre would be a sign. Well, now the only thing that comes out of that is, I don't know where the reporter is, but I know where the PI is. So it's the next logical step to follow. Right. Aside from calling the number, which Alex is very reluctant to do, because he really does. And I hope that's coming through. He feels like he is being watched. He doesn't trust Xavier at all. And
why would
I? And his insinuation into the family business now makes me even more unwilling to trust him. Reinforced by Kyle's commentary. There's other, and I don't want to go back down and investigate anymore in the warehouse area, because that's his territory. Yeah. It was risky for me to do it in the first place, thinking that I was going to get, maybe a button board by the O'Shaughnessy's.
Right.
But luckily that didn't happen. But knowing that it's his territory, I don't want to put myself in his hands. If anything is going to, Alex's perspective is, if anything is going to happen, he's going to have to come to me. He will send his people to me if that's what his intention is.
Reasonable.
It's very reasonable. But I'm not going to go out of my way to go into his territory.
Right.
The whole thing with Steve, that's really drives him on even more. And now I have this quote unquote sighting of someone who looks like the Fist. That's also a possible lead to follow up with on more witnesses. Knowing that the O'Shaughnessy's are quote unquote weakened somewhat at this point, I feel a little comfortable going into their territory down here where Steve's place is at.
Right.
So going back down here again might not be beyond Alex's choices.
Right.
I put my own hook out there in recruiting Kyle to say, look, I ain't got time to do all this paperwork, investigation, shoe leather stuff. NPC man, you go over here, try and be a resource for me. Give me some information to go on, see if you can pull anything companies otherwise. So I'm actually trying to use Kyle to generate more leads with, from anything that can come from that angle. Because being in the treasury,
that will be done mechanically. Like I will,
I
will investigate with him.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. But story wise, exactly. That's
that's how those
Kyle
are connected.
To generate a little bit more information there. I'm certainly not running out of anything. So I feel I have yet to feel like there's nothing to go on. There's no stone that I can't look at to overturn. If something turns out to be a false lead, then at least hopefully I follow it and we resolve it quickly and then move on to the next one, because that's more or less what an investigation is, right? I've got to check up on all this stuff, and it's a process of elimination. Yes. From his perspective right now, yes, Xavier is the guy who's in charge, making the connection between Xavier and his company and the money and the book. which I still need to follow up with for the remainder of that stuff at my family's business. So I might overlap a visit to the accounting house and the hospital in the next day. So it's 2 places I got to go. And we'll see what happens from there.
Right.
And I haven't felt stonewalled. Like, oh, it's a dead end. Oh, it's a dead end. Oh, it's a red herring. Oh, it's a dead end. You know, there's always been, I get some information. This leads me to believe that I need to go look at something else, which some of the information I glean is valuable to a point. Like, I was really hoping that when I burst in on Washburn and Mrs. Smith using the newspaper article, that maybe she would recognize him. Right. That was my own dead end. I needed to eliminate, especially when Kyle kept saying, she said it wasn't enough. She said it wasn't enough. And thinking about how Xavier has talked about a better, you know, all this stuff. Well, that sounds like something somebody in the group would say, that it wasn't enough. So I needed to eliminate her as a inside agent, let's say. Right. She's the landlord of the place that Steve lives at. Did she collude with or allow, you know, that to happen?
And is that deduction or is that paranoia?
Yeah, that's yet to be determined. To be determined on that.
Yeah, it's good.
And in the background, with the in Alex's mind is, you know, because he's been thinking about his personal investigation into Steve, he is really interested in moving to the Bureau. Because he doesn't believe that chasing the money and chasing the companies is not enough. And recently he's seen enough violent crime that he doesn't think on his end he's not doing enough to uphold the law. So that is a character intention of his. If the investigation goes well, if I come out of this on the other end in a good position, he's going to want to transfer from the Treasury to the Bureau.
Right. Yes.
And
those companies, those organizations are very intertwined, and who's on top and who's not is quite nebulous. And
and during the time frame, I mean, the 30 through 35, they had a lot of toss-up in the FBI but in the Bureau of Investigation.
The Bureau of Investigation.
I think it was 1928 when they themselves say they adopted the moniker of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But most articles up until the 30s still refer to them as the Bureau of Investigation. But Doherty was one of the guys who was in charge of then, and there was a lot of hubbub around the draft dodgers at that time. And that they were rounding up all these, trying to round up all these guys who were dodging the draft. And it turns out a lot of them weren't. So there was a lot of false accusations. He wound up standing down from the head of the Bureau. When the Bureau came out, they were looked on pretty favorably, but they soon developed that G-man, don't know whether I really want to trust you because of all these problems you guys are having.
An earned reputation of mistrust.
Earned reputation of being problematic, yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. There are a couple of other things that that occurred earlier that may reappear or not.
Sure. Titillate me now, will you? Something may have happened. It may happen over here. Yeah. Okay.
Well, someone may have said something, or someone may have suggested something, and they may or may not follow through, or the dice may or may not be successful for them.
Okay.
That kind of thing. And, so that also keeps the investigation in motion.
Now, are you referring to the other group?
No, just
Okay, here. Okay.
Yeah.
So as of yet, has there really been, aside from this one point with the private investigator,
right.
we've pretty much been on separate tracks from what I can see. Like we're
Right.
barely even within horizon line of each other from what it feels like, at least from what the videos that I've watched.
You were separated in districts of Boston
Mm-hmm.
and following different, let's say, investigations for ease, that of course have some connection. And the massacre obviously ties you together in a way.
It appears to be the strongest tie so far.
Yeah. But you're still not in sync in time.
Okay.
So, although you're closer than when you started.
Yay! Awesome.
So that just depends on how the sessions go.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
The research sessions that they did, right? There was an awful lot of play that didn't cover much time, right? It just covered a day, but it was a lot of, same length of session with less calendar time involved. So you're catching up in that regard.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the massacre is a moment where, all of the characters have stood in that room except one.
Nice. How do you feel about the experiment so far? The original intention behind doing all this. Now we've progressed a few more sessions now since the last time I asked about this. I know you've progressed a few more sessions with the other group since the last time I met. So how are you feeling about it at this point in the journey?
It's still a lot of fun. I find it to be satisfying play. Like, sometimes when you play a game that you've played a lot, you have that moment of, oh, this is so much fun. And then you're reminded of the things that aren't satisfying or whatever. Or you play with a particular group for a particular genre and you're really gung-ho for it and it sounds really cool to them, but then you start playing and one or more people just don't really connect with it. It's like, yeah, it's fine, but I'd rather do some other thing. Yeah.
Or if it's like, even here, it might be Call of Cthulhu versus Delta Green, right? It's still Call of Cthulhu, but it's different time area. Yeah.
And so stuff like that. So none of that stuff has happened. So, it's just all been positive. I'm enjoying running the system. Culture of play in the different groups is starting to appear, right? And they're different.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask if I remember last time you mentioned they were different. Are they coming closer together? Like, have they moved towards a middle?
No.
At all? No.
You and me, we are talking about how we are playing, and our culture of play is to play, and then to talk about play and adjust. We haven't needed much adjustment because we'd already had a decade of conversation prior. So we were pretty prepared, I think.
Close to
So we didn't make adjustments about how we were playing. We made adjustments to the
method and technique,
the methodology of a particular thing. Like, how do I do this thing to match this?
We're kind of fine tuning,
goal,
more or less.
The other group, we are talking about the experience. And so while I will ask, I recently asked them about how they felt during the investigation. Like, was there any horror? Did that horror feel Lovecraftian or did it feel like some different kind of horror? Did they feel like they had things that they could do? Did the type of horror leave them feeling like they couldn't do anything, right? Were they deprotagonized or whatever? Those kinds of questions. So we're talking about that rather than talking about a goal for what play should feel like or that kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't, it's kind of weird being a solo player. I haven't felt deprotagonized because I have to, as the protagonist, quote unquote, here, I really do have to keep pushing towards the front. If I stall, action will stall, period. If I don't keep moving,
right,
which it's kind of handy. Yeah. It's kind of
scene after scene of Alex's lonely house.
You're doing paperwork, let's make another investigation roll, library use. Can I do some research on Morgan Company? I mean, all that stuff's valuable. When I think because we've seen Lovecraft for so long, I don't have a classic view of this is what it should feel like for a 1930s, 1920s, right out of the book, right? That's not what I picture in my own head, because so many of those stories are written from the perspective of a diary, or someone is telling someone what happened. So it's from that kind of perspective. It feels more, oh gosh, what they just restarted that television series.
True Detective.
True Detectives. It interspersing the scenes of horror with normal activity and life seems more natural to me, because this is what the character goes through. I mean, I don't talk about eating breakfast every morning, and I certainly haven't mentioned it except for once now about how the only cleanup over the past 3-4 days that Alex has been active is I've been shaving. I have not been showering, right?
He doesn't want to see where the tattoo ended up.
I don't want to see where these things, for me, that's, exactly. I don't want to, I have no idea where it's gone. Don't want to know. But that kind of mixing feels more comfortable and more appropriate. I don't want to say it supports the verisimilitude, or it's more realistic, or it just feels more natural, because otherwise it seems like we're going from action scene to action scene to action scene to action scene, just over and over again with no ebb and flow of activity.
Right. And in a Lovecraftian short story, you are going to be introduced to the weirdness, and then it's going to get progressively more weird until there's some punchline. Even the longer ones.
Like the case of Charles Dexter Ward is great for that.
Yeah, and because it's entries, and then or the statement of Randolph Carter. It's like a legal transcript of what he said during the trial, and rats in the walls.
But in the other group, though, are the differences in how people have been approaching. Have you seen that some participants that don't normally use language or go towards a character's perspective, do they have some waning in and out of that at times more often now that they've been playing in this kind of environment a little longer? Or is it still a little more technical, a little more gamey?
There is some state shifting still. But we've all, like, that has become the culture of play. So there, with you and me, Alex is either thinking or he's talking to an NPC. With that group, they can talk to each other, and because they've been able to play separately and together, they have things to talk about that aren't a performative conversation, it's an actual conversation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So each scene is deeply in character, and they don't see eye to eye on the things that they have uncovered, or they've got different experiences of what they've experienced together and separately. So there's a lot for them to talk about, and I'm still running the game the same way, which is that when they encounter something for, that may or may not need the system, then there may or may not be a role for it. And there's only been a few instances where it's been, well, I've got disability, or what I'm trying to do is use disability, or I don't know how to, right? Like I just can't figure out how to do this in character, so I have to ask you. We've had a couple of moments like that.
Okay.
But there's been the game is really carried by their conversations.
Interesting. Yeah, like I said, I've been nipping away at the second video just because I've had so much crap going on. So I am looking forward to getting through it and then moving into the third one. Third one for them, because I think there's about 4 videos right before the first one of mine pops up, right?
Yeah, yours was the 5th. Yeah.
5th, okay.
Yeah, and the 4th is research, so that's something you should avoid, just to not spoil it yourself. But the second session should reinforce any opinion you have about Morgan, so you'll probably enjoy the second session.
Okay.
Yeah. And you personally have encountered all the things that they discovered. So the leg in the wall is not a mystery to you. So
anything else about the whole experience so far? Other than it's going well, what have you learned from, even though you've been running Call of Cthulhu for so long, what have you kind of gotten out of this?
I've been thinking a lot about how I used to run it, and wondering how long, like in terms of time, how long it took for me to recognize the impact of system. Like I'm kind of curious about exactly where did that come, and did it come as a result of suggestions made in the rules somewhere? Because the rules got more explicit as they went on, right? So I started with 4th, and then I got 3rd, right? And then eventually I got 5th, but I kept using 4th. I preferred the book. And then I got 6th, and 6th was what I brought here, so I started using it here. And 6 has a lot of the same conclusions that I came to when playing in it, and some of those are in the earlier books in a less organized, less impactful fashion, right? So what did I figure out on my own? What was I led to by observations that were growing over time in the rules? I'm curious about that a little bit, but this play has just reinforced that it's a totally different game if you constantly switch between the character layer and the system layer, right? Okay, roll sand, and I've had to do that in this session, or not in this session, but in this campaign, because there's no other way to go about it.
Oh yeah. I was waiting to hear that at some point, during this session, if something was going to come up. So that was one of the things I had rolling in the back of my mind was, pay attention for the cue, make sure you listen for the cue,
right?
But like even in the case of you've got to make a psychology roll, there's no way you can really avoid saying, not state switching. But for me, that's fast enough. Okay, bam, it's so mechanical. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, like
because this system is so fast at being able, for me anyway, being able to switch state. Okay, make percentile roll. Where's my percentage? Bam, done. So it's like flipping a light switch on and off. Lights on, we're at the character level. Lights off, we're at the system layer. Lights on, we're at the character level.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very easy to dip in and out.
So one thing that I've been thinking about is, I got my tablet here with the characters on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look and I can see what the scores are, and I'm really tempted, right? Just a very if there isn't some other way to say it, right, then I really just want to ask for a roll, right?
Yeah.
Just give me a percentile roll, and that means they have to tell me the number back, right, or to say pass or fail or something like that. So it is disruptive in that regard. But then they don't really know what they've rolled for. And then I just continue on giving them information and responding and acting and interacting with them as befits that success or failure. And that's been kind of an interesting thing to think about. So that's been represented a lot in luck. I've pretty much taken on the advice in 6th edition to just roll the luck, behind the screen. Right.
Yeah. I think even most of my keepers always did that. I don't ever recall making a luck roll, really.
Right. And I feel better about the idea of asking for an idea roll or a no roll in that way too, in a secret way. Because I've had a lot of players react over the years like, oh, he's called for an idea roll, so there must be something I'm missing. And he's like, the clue is over here.
Yeah.
And that's really not how I make an idea roll. Like if you separate story out,
yeah,
right, then that reason for the idea roll never manifests. What I use it for is this character with their background and information. Are they able to make a connection that is not obvious? Right? Are they able to infer or something? So they're standing right next to another investigator. That other investigator is not getting this idea roll. This idea roll is because of who your character is. And at this moment in time, do they get that inspiration? Right? Do they have an idea, right, that the player can then act on and figure out how to find support for? That's how I use it. I don't like, okay, I told you about the dry cleaner, and I told you about the delivery of dry cleaning chemical, and I told you about the delivery of sulfuric acid, and I told you about the delivery of the giant vat, and I told you about all the people who are disappearing in the neighborhood.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question, is like, when the idea roll is successful, how you then dispense the information. Yeah, okay.
So you've had an idea roll, or did you? No, you didn't.
I think most of mine has been luck rolls in the past so far.
Right, so another character in another scene got a whole bunch of random information. And then there was an idea roll, right, which was successful, which then led to kind of oh, what about this? Which opened up a new line of investigation. Right? So all these facts, right, are just facts, but that character is able to see the pattern in the facts.
Yeah.
So what that lets me do is give the player a bunch of useful data, but not so much to overwhelm them, and not so much where I should be giving out a stack of handouts.
Yeah.
And then tell them why I'm giving them that data. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. Yeah. Because that's probably a hard part too, is especially when the player is not. I mean, face it, a real investigation is hard to do. When you're parsing together a puzzle or parsing together clues or working your way through something. So the idea roll is great for that inability to bridge the gap between someone's actual real world deductive or inductive ability to say, look, your character is like this. Your character does. So let me just point you out what the facts are. And hopefully by, like what you said, the vat, the laundry chemicals, the sulfuric acid, the disappearances, here are the facts that because sometimes they can get obscured. Like even in my notes, I spent, like when I got back, I took 10 minutes to go through last week's notes to kind of make sure, okay, refresh my memory. Where am I at? What do I remember? Where am I going? Where's Alex going?
Right.
But even then, it's like now I'm having to go back to session 1, go back to session 2. Now I'm trying to figure out how can I collate my notes even better now to start seeing. It's the map and the pin board, the pins, right? I'm trying
for Alex, it's been much less time than it has been.
Oh yeah,
for you.
I have not rested on my laurels at all. By God, I'm out there.
Yeah. But the other thing that because I didn't like idea rolls initially, I liked no rolls because I knew enough to know that a bunch of 20-year-olds didn't know what these characters know.
Yeah.
But I guess we weren't even 20 yet. Oh. But anyway, what convinced me to start using the no roll was my own ability to generate the clues or whatever, right? So what I think is an implication or what I think is suggestive, I'm not in a great position to be able to adjudicate that because I know what I'm trying to make a clue for.
Yeah.
So I can't look at it and say that's too obvious. I can't look at it and say it's not obvious enough. As reliably, I guess that's what I want to say. And then there's just the ability to actually physically make a clue that someone can interact with and keep coming back to until they have their own kind of light bulb moment. Right? There's a lot of stuff you just can't give people, and so I use the idea roll to fill in the gap. Like I'm giving you this file, and maybe it's a real letter that I give you, and I'm giving you this picture of something, and what this is all about is I want to communicate this idea without giving away anything.
Nice.
But the no roll I still use as a no roll. Well, because you've studied.
Well, and it helps to differentiate, right? An idea is an idea. I mean, it's kind of nice that it's right there in the name, that the idea is something you think may be possible. You have an idea or a conception. The no is your character is an archaeologist, so you can also at the reverse end, if they've got too much information, you can help them eliminate something that maybe the player has been latching onto. That's not leading anywhere. You remember from your time at, in class when you talked about this thing in specific, after you've parsed it out for a while, that this is not going to be a good lead for you to follow down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I like these roles to be secret.
Oh yeah. Hidden information always makes a game interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you can just do the roll and not, even when the player's not even thinking of it, you can make the roll, and if there's no real outcome, like say the roll is a failure, you can just keep moving on. If the roll is a success, then you've got the prompt to, okay, now how do I, at what point do I work this in to get them back on the right track, or, you know, to help them on their way.
And the other side of it is the experience versus performative axis. Yeah. Right. So I rolled my knowledge roll. I failed my knowledge roll. So I know that this information I'm going to act on now is not true, but I have to act like I think it is true. Okay. And that's fun. But that's not this experience.
Yeah. I like I said, I think all three of those rolls, I don't really remember ever making them at all, having played Call of Cthulhu in the past. To the best of my knowledge, idea, luck, and no, I don't think. I know I've made stat rolls in the past.
Probably Dex. It's right out there.
I know Dex was.
Yeah.
I think another one of them was strength. There was one on that. I do remember from that. But those three on the side, no. I don't really ever remember rolling those at all, which is fine. You know?
Right.
All right, man. I gotta get rolling this morning. And
okay.
It's
2:47.
2:47 for you. You're 2 hours ahead, right?
Yep, I guess so.
Crazy. Or no, yeah. 12 hours. 14 hours ahead.
Yeah, it's 2:47 on Thursday.
Yeah, it's 11:47 for me on Wednesday. Okay. All right. Try and get some rest, man.
I will try. All
right.
Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you for running again.
My pleasure. Thanks for playing.
What the people of Boston need to understand is that if you get in my way, I'm going to send you to meet your maker and not think twice about it.